welcome to the OklaRoots YouTube channel. In today's tutorial, we're actually doing a wallet. This might be the third time we've done this wallet on the channel. It's how much I love it. Today, we're actually going to do an adaptation to the Necessary Clutch wallet from Emmeline Bags. Now, this is an adaptation that so many of you have already done. You told me about it. You're like, Jess, you have to try it. It's making the Necessary Clutch wallet a mini. And there is an actual pattern to go with this. There's no like finagly tricks we have to use to make this happen. Over on the Emmeline Bags website, you can actually purchase a little add-on to go with the original pattern. So you do need to have the original Necessary Clutch wallet, NCW for short. You do need to have that original pattern, and then you can also buy the little add-on to go with it, and then you go make the little mini version. Now, I wish I had my Necessary Clutch wallet that we made previously in the channel. It's actually my mom's everyday wallet, and she's not here right now, so I can't show you the comparison, but it is quite a bit smaller. It's the same height going this way, it's just a little bit shorter going this way. So let's open her up. As you can see, I used a magnetic snap on the front here. On the back is just where I put my bag tag, and then when we open up this little cutie patootie, but bam, all the things we know and love about the NCW. We've got some card slot pockets over here, some card slot pockets over here, one zipper. You could do the 2 zipper hack that we did in the original NCW tutorial. That's definitely an option. As you can see in this one, I did do the rivet hack for the sides. This one's a little bit trickier to do that with because some of the panels don't quite come up as high as we'd want, but it does still work really well. So if you're just like, there is no way I'm going to be able to sew along this edge with all this in the way, you don't have to. I think today we might actually, I don't know, we might do the rivets or we might try sewing it. We'll see. So I do think that this is a pretty beginner-friendly wallet. There's a lot of great adaptations to this. I'm going to show you all the tricks that I know of to make it even easier. I would say probably the very hardest part about this entire wallet is closing off this edge right here if you try to sew it. Rivets are helpful. You can sew it. You don't have to make it perfect. It's one of those wallets where if there's like little things here and there that you're like, it's not quite perfect, keep going because in the end, you're not going to notice it at all and you're going to love it. It turns out just so professional. It's such a cute wallet and it is perfect for an everyday wallet. So the adaptation to this pattern actually comes from Natel Webb from Tangle Web Design. So thank you so much for putting this together. Thank you as always to Emmeline Bags for allowing me to use your patterns in my videos. Like I said, I think this might be the third time we're making this. We made it once, a full tutorial going over it. We did it a second time on the industrial sewing machine just to see what it would be like with leather. I think we did that on the channel, or I might have just done it on my own. I'll go check. But this is the third time we're doing it. I mean, if there's any more adaptations to this, we'll probably do it again on the channel. That's how much I love this wallet. If you're new to the OklaRoots YouTube channel, please consider clicking subscribe down below. If at any point you like this video, please give it a like. Any questions, comments, shoutouts, anything at all, leave them down in the comment section. If you click the little arrow over here, that'll expand the description of the video. That's where you're going to find links to all the products that I'm using, as well as the timestamps. So every single bit of this tutorial will have a timestamp. Even though we've already done the Necessary Clutch wallet tutorial before, we are going to walk through it step by step once again in the smaller version. You can also find those timestamps running right along the bottom of the screen over here. Just hover over the screen and you can just kind of see where you need to go, click there, and it'll take you straight there in the video. Alrighty guys, let's get started. Okay, so the fabric requirements for the mini version are pretty much the same as the fabric requirements for the larger version. You're gonna need about a fat quarter of exterior fabric. So I'm gonna be mixing that up with this this is a cotton woven material. This is what I'm gonna use for the front and the back of the flap. So exterior and lining side of the flap is this material right here. And then for the exterior body, I'll be using this very lightweight vinyl. If you've been watching the last few videos, you know I just keep finding more ways to use this vinyl. I just like it because I know it's gonna be easy to sew and it's going to provide a bit of durability like vinyl does, but I'm not going to be breaking any needles on it. And then you're going to need a fat quarter if you just have one lining, and then also you're going to have a ½ yard of material for all the pockets, so credit card slots, zipper pockets, all that stuff. You're going to need a good amount of material. I'm going to use this lightweight, water-resistant canvas for everything lining based, so credit card pockets, lining of the wallet, all of it. I'm going to use this. This stuff is great. I don't have to add any woven interfacing to these 2 pieces, but I did add sew fuse to my quilt weight cotton, so my lightweight material. So I know this is kind of a hodgepodge of scraps, but This is a woven interfacing. You can think Pellon Shape Flex, Pellon SF101. Or what I like to use is SoFuse. SoFuse sells out quickly, so if you see it, grab it. Grab as much as you can. But SoFuse, it's really nice. It's lightweight. It doesn't add a lot of bulk to your material, but it prevents any of your material from stretching or fraying. So it's great for quilt weight cotton woven material, or cotton lycra, which is a stretchy material. This is the great stuff to use. Next, I have a couple small cuts using Decovil Heavy. I have 2 cuts as suggested by the pattern. I don't know if I'm going to use them both today. I'm still trying to decide. But I'm definitely going to use one of the cuts. You can use this to provide firmness to your wallet. So the cuts for this are for the flap and for the body. I'll show you guys that in just a moment. And then finally, I have my SoFuse Plus. So this is the SoFuse. Very light, very drapey, very nice. SoFuse Plus has a little bit of stiffness to it, okay? This is great. It's going to turn any material into more of like a crisp, paper-like material, which is exactly what we want in a wallet. So if you can't get a hold of SoFuse Plus, because again, anything SoFuse related, it sells out so fast. Monica, she's a Wonder Woman over there, but everybody loves this stuff, so it sells out very quickly. But SoFuse Plus, you can also use Pellon 808 or 809. Pellon 808 and 809 are the same thing. They're just different sizes, which is also called Craft Fuse. That's going to be a good substitute for this. The nice thing about SoFuse Plus versus Craft Fuse is that Craft Fuse wrinkles a lot, and it can be kind of difficult to get it flattened out. It takes a little bit more time with the iron. SoFuse Plus doesn't do that. You're just going to adhere it, and it's beautiful. Perfect. For this, I'll be using rivets. If you saw my first video going over the Necessary Clutch wallet, to close the sides, little sides that pinch, you'll see. It's very difficult to stitch down those lines, so what I do is I use rivets instead. I'll be doing that again today. And then for the closure, I am using a magnetic snap that has a rivet back. So these are magnetic snaps, and as you can see, they look just like what you would expect on the front, but on the back, they have little posts instead of those prongs. And what we do is we install this with our rivet press, and we have a beautiful little rivet backing. So that's what I'll be using today. You could also use a turn lock. I just find this to be much quicker. And today's goal is to make a fun little wallet as quickly and easily as possible. And then for the zipper tape, I am using a number 3 zipper tape. So this is a number 3 zipper pull. A smaller zipper tape is recommended here. I did use a number 5 zipper tape on the first wallet. It is pretty bulky. I would suggest you do size down for this and use a number 3 zipper tape. The sizing of it is just how wide the zipper teeth are. So this is going to be 3 millimeters versus 5 millimeters on a number 5. It's a tight fit, right? It's a wallet. It's a tight fit. So we're trying to pack in a lot without it all taking up a lot of space. So number 3 is good for this. All right, let's go through all the other stuff. As always, my handy dandy trusty rivet press. If you are interested in a rivet press, I have a whole video going over it. If you find yourself enjoying making bags, and this is a hobby you can see yourself kind of sticking with for a while, this is probably the best tool you could have in your sewing room. Highly, highly recommend it. I know it looks intimidating. It's not. It's the best. You'll love it. And then a small 1" by 6" ruler. My thread today. Okay, so I'm mixing up a little bit today with thread. For the top thread, I'm using a Tex 45 weight thread. This is a bit of a thicker thread. It does work on my Bernina 770, which is what I'm sewing on today, in the top needle. So through the needle. For the bobbin, this does not work for me at all. Through the bobbin, I'm actually using a Tex 35 weight thread. I've been sewing with this and it works well. However, you have to be a little bit careful when you wind it. That's the only tip I have. If you're going to be using a Tex 35 weight thread, specifically in a Bernina, you do need to add more tension to the thread when you're winding the bobbin. The first bobbin I wound with this was way too loose. That would have caused a lot of problems in my machine. So I did have to add a bit of tension to that. If you're interested in all that, let me know and we'll go over another video on how to do that. And then the needle today is a Microtex 8012. As always, lots and lots of clips. I always like to have a few different types of marking tools because I use a lot of different types of fabrics. So I have a silver ink pen. This is great for vinyl because you can just wipe it off. And then I have a chalk marking pen. Also, this is great for everything, honestly. And then I have a heat erasing pen. So this will come off with a iron. However, don't depend on that because it can reappear. So I only use this in seams and on the back of material. Next, I have my Stiletto Seam Ripper Combo, which is one of my favorite tools. This is actually a new color from Cool and Hive. It's got a little bit of sparkle, a little bit of glitter. I actually got to be a part of this and see this a little bit before it came out, so I'm really excited about these. I'll have a link down below. And then at the sewing machine, I always have this stiletto right here. This is nice and lightweight. It's easy to push the material through with. I always have a lighter to clean up any little loose threads and bits and bobs. And then I have my dies to go with my rivet press. I have my die set to install the magnetic snaps. You can see these kind of look like magnetic snaps, but they are the dies. And then you have a top die to go with that. And then I have my die set for the rivets. So let's go through the main pieces first. First, we have our flap. Now, the flap is going to close like this. So when you're thinking about pattern placement, if you want to use a directional print on the flap on the front and the back, you're going to cut out one in this direction and you're going to cut out the other one upside down. The upside down one like this, that's going to be how it looks when the wallet is closed. And then this one will be how it looks when the wallet is open. So you can see if we lay them right sides out, wrong sides together, this is it when the wallet's closed. This is it when the wallet's open. Very cute. These are both pieces of quilt weight cotton woven material, and they have the sew fuse already adhered to it. And then we have the front flap piece. This is a piece of Decoville Heavy. When I made this wallet in the previous video, I used a piece of Decoville Light on the back of each one of these. 2 pieces of Decoville Light is the same thing as 1 piece of Decoville Heavy. So this Decoville Heavy piece is a smaller cut, which means we're going to be able to have thinner seams, which is ideal. It looks better. It just looks better. So we're going to have thinner seams, but still that nice firm body. The pattern does suggest that you apply the Decoville Heavy to the fabric first and then apply your woven interfacing over it so that the Decoville Heavy is like sandwiched in there. This is very helpful because when you end up turning this flap out, it is easy for the Decoville Heavy to come unadhered. Obviously, I forgot to do that again, so we'll be fine. But these are the pieces for the flap. And then for the main body, we have our exterior piece, which is that very lightweight vinyl. I don't have any interfacing on this. And then I have my lining piece. This is that water-resistant canvas, very lightweight. And then I did actually interface this with the Sew Fuse Plus, which again is like a craft fuse. So this is interfaced like that. So it has a nice firmness, but it's not thick. I love it. The pattern suggests you also add this piece of Decoville Heavy to the center of the wallet. This helps give it a lot of really nice structure. However, it also adds bulk. So I did use this in the previous wallet. I think I'm actually going to leave this out today and see how it turns out without this. I think we should just try it because this does provide a lot of beautiful structure to the wallet. However, if it's slightly off, slightly high, slightly low, it does give you a little bit of a headache. So I'm going to try it without this today, and then I'll let you know how they compare. All right, here are all the other pieces. They don't all have labels and everything, so I just kind of grouped them together. So first, one of the pattern pieces we do have is this main zipper pocket. You're gonna have 2 cuts of this. I'm using water-resistant canvas, so I'm not adding any interfacing to any of this. The thinner, the better. Remember, with wallets, that's the hardest thing with wallets is that you want to keep them very thin, very lightweight, because you're going to pack them full of credit cards and money, right? Hopefully, yeah, maybe some of us. So you want to keep the material as thin as possible, but the material also needs to have good structure because you don't want a loosey-goosey floppy wallet. You want it to be firm and structured, but lightweight and thin. It's a very hard combo. So something like water-resistant canvas is going to be your friend here. It's got durability, it's firm, however, it's lightweight, it's thin, it's not going to take up a lot of space. So I have 2 cuts of this for piece G, and then you're going to have 2 additional cuts that are mentioned in the pattern, and these are also for the zipper pocket. They're all going to go together, so I like to just kind of group them together like that. So for the credit card slots, you're going to have 2 long cuts of material. The measurements for that are in the pattern, and you're going to have another smaller cut. This is for the back of it. The pattern does give you an option to build your credit card slots so that the credit cards are inserted vertically instead of horizontally. So they're inserted like this instead of like this. Here's the thing. I did do that on this version here, and I love the idea of it because then you can fit in 4 on each side, which is nice. However, I don't know if you can see, I have 2 inserted here, and when you insert them, they both come up to the same height. Now, I don't know if I just didn't fold this correctly, but by doing that, you can't really see the top card. You know what I mean? You kind of have to pull out the bottom card to see what's on the top. So I don't know if I'm going to be doing this method today just because usability wise, I think it's going to be a little challenging to use it like that. And then finally we have some scraps for zipper tabs. I don't know if I want to use the quilt weight cotton or the water resistant canvas for these zipper tabs. So I just take scraps over here, and then whenever I build my zipper, I'll decide which material I want to use. All right, so while we wait for the iron to heat up, let's do a little bit of prep work. I like to mark midpoints because it's going to be easier to piece everything together. So on the bottom straight edges, so just the straight edges of each flap, you can go ahead and fold the material in half any which way and just pinch and mark that midpoint. I'm going to use scissors here. You want to be a little careful if you are using scissors because the pattern today has a 1/4 inch seam allowance, which is a pretty small seam allowance. So if you cut that triangle too big, you're going to have some trouble. So you might want to use a marking tool here instead of snipping it. Or if you do snip it, just make it the teeniest, tiniest little snip. It doesn't need to be big for you to notice it. So I have that on my flap, and now I'm going to fold my exterior pieces in half and mark the midpoint on the long sides, not the shorter sides. So I'm going to do this for both the exterior and the lining. And then I don't think I need to mark the midpoints on the zipper pocket pieces because they are so small. I didn't have a problem keeping those lined up. And then same with the card slot pockets. I think we can mark the midpoints at a later time whenever we're going to be doing our lines. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to pick one of our flap materials and we're going to adhere the Decoville Heavy centered on the back of it. So you can see when I put it down like this, I'm making sure it's got the same amount of material overhanging on all the edges. So I've been getting a lot of questions on my little pink iron lately. It is very, very cute. It is a steam iron. I'll show you. See, it does still have steam. It's very, very nice. However, it's also very, very expensive for an iron, which is why I have not been linking it because I just don't know if for my needs as a bag maker, it really is worth the amount of money I spent on it. It's pink, so that's why I bought it. But it is a pretty pricey iron. It works very well. I mean, as an iron, it does great, but as you can see, I'm just going to use some steam and some heat to get that Decoville Heavy adhered to my flap. And you really want to make sure you adhere these corners down, especially if you already applied your woven interfacing like I did. If you didn't apply your woven interfacing, it's great because you adhere the Decoville Heavy to the actual fabric, and then you take that woven interfacing cut, put that over the back of the Decoville Heavy, and you don't have to worry about it coming out. So this is the only extra interfacing I'm adding for this pattern today. So we'll be using the original pattern for the Necessary Clutch wallet for most of this tutorial. This wallet is not any shorter than the first wallet, it's just not as wide, right? So it's a little bit more narrow. So we're going to build our credit card slots just like we did before. Like I said, you can try the vertical option that is in the mini Necessary Clutch wallet pattern, but maybe I just folded those wrong. But I'm going to do it so that the credit cards go in horizontally, so this way. So before I start measuring my lines, I like to take my credit card material and lay it wrong side up. We're going to be drawing on the back side of it, and then I always mark a little T to let me know where the top is because it can get a little confusing moving stuff around. Okay, once you have the measurements marked on the back side of your credit card pocket, what you're going to do is you're going to flip it over. And so remember, this is the top. So that first line that we marked, we're going to fold the material right sides together. And I'm just going to pinch it. The nice thing about this water-resistant canvas is that it's kind of like paper, so I can just fold it and it will stay pretty well. I am going to press it as well, but for the most part that will stay. All right, and the next line is going to be pressed wrong sides together. So we're kind of making like an accordion here. So you might have to kind of look at the side, pinch one side. I know some people like to clip little triangles along the sides of their material so it's easier for them to know exactly where to fold. Whatever's good for you. I just fold on the sides first, and then I line this up to make sure everything is straight. And then I'll press it with my fingers. If I'm using quilt cotton or cotton woven for this step, then I will just press it with an iron each time. Since I'm using this water-resistant canvas, I just kind of press it with my fingers first, and then I iron it all last. So you see here is the first little credit card spot. So now we're going to do that again. So for the third line, press the material right sides together. Always make sure you're lining up the edges. You don't want this to start turning on itself. And then 4th line, material is going to go wrong sides together. So once again, I'm just going to go to the side, pinch one side, pinch the other side, line it up, make sure it's all straight. There we go. And then press it with my finger. And I always like to kind of re-according it each time, make sure it's looking correct. There we go, that's looking great. Look at the back. Okay, these are different too, that's good. So now next one, fold the material right sides together, right along that line. Finger press it. And then for the last one, fold the material wrong sides together and finger press. So now when I refold it all, this is what we have. And once I press this with an iron, it's going to stay very crisp and firm, just like this. If you have a lot of overhang down here, don't even worry about it. These are way too tall. So we're gonna be trimming off a lot from the bottom of this. So these pockets are gonna be used like this, where the credit cards go in horizontally. If you're doing the version where the credit cards go in vertically like that, you won't have as much overhang. You do need more material when you do the folds because you need a deeper pocket here. So that's why I have so much more than you might. So I'm gonna repeat this for the other card slot pocket. All right, once you have it all folded, get it to lie down the right way so that it's all nice and neat. And then I'm gonna grab my iron and I'm just gonna gently iron this. Now, water-resistant canvas, once it gets really hot, it's very loosey-goosey and it just wants to like straighten out. Don't let it, because once it cools, it'll cool exactly the way you want it to. So I just kind of press down. I'm not burning my fingers or anything. I just press it down like this as it's cooling. And now it's very firm and it will be much easier for me to top stitch this. So do this for both of your credit card sleeves. So now we're going to take both of these credit card pockets to the sewing machine and we're going to top stitch along each of the folded edges at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. It doesn't matter if you're doing the horizontal or the vertical pockets. These top folds that we just made, you're going to stitch along each one of them at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. You're going to pull everything out of the way as you do it. You're not stitching through the rest of the material. So just whoop and then move it out of the way, stitch. So you might have noticed that I do backstitch at the beginning and the end of each one of these top stitching rows. That's just because I have found that these stitches kind of unravel as I'm working on the wallet, and that has a lot to do with the thickness of my thread. So the backstitching stitch, since it is just one stitch length, it will probably be hidden in the seam allowance, and it's just helpful. So now before we move on, we're gonna baste along the sides of each of these panels at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance just to hold this in place so it doesn't move around on us. So once you have these basted down, what you wanna do is trim this pocket so that it is 4.5 inches high. So just grab your ruler and you're gonna measure from the top down and you're gonna measure 4.5 inches and then just trim off the bottom edge of anything left over. There's going to be a good amount left over on these ones since these are so long. So now take your 2 credit card pockets and with the openings on the top on each side, we're going to fold them right sides together. Again, make sure the openings are on the top on both of them. Do not attach it with one upside down. Don't do that to yourself. So right sides together, tops together. We're going to clip along the bottom edge. So now let's sew along this bottom edge at 1/4 inch seam allowance. Once you have them sewn together, you're going to want to open them up so you can see the right side, and looking at the back side, we're going to press open that seam. We want to get that seam nice and flat. Now with waterproof canvas, water resistant canvas, it usually has like a plasticky coating on the back of it and you really don't want to hit that with your iron. So I'm going to finger press this open from the back and then I'm going to flip it upside down and continue pressing it, and then I'm just going to give it a good press from the front and that will hold it in place. Okay, here we go. And so the original pattern does have you go sew a line directly so you can have 2 sets of card slots. This is a smaller wallet, so we just have 1 set of card slots. Now I'm going to take the card slot pocket backing. So taking my unit with the card slots laying right side up, I'm going to take the backing piece and lay it right side down on top of it. So the 2 pieces are right sides together. They should be the same size, hopefully. And then I'm going to clip them together on the bottom and top edges. So now let's sew along these two clipped edges at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Once this is sewn together, you're going to flip the whole unit right side out. I love wallets. I love how they come together. This is so cool. So then we're going to press along the top and bottom edges that we just sewed. And just get them as flat as you can. Really get in there and press that seam out. Don't have a wavy seam here. And then just give it a press with your iron. So I'm going to do this for both sides. I can just pretty much reach in here and just run my finger along that seam to get it just right. Okay, once you have it pressed, now we're just going to top stitch around all the edges at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And there we go, the little credit card slots are done. I love these, these are so cute. So go ahead and set that to the side. Now let's work on our zipper pocket. So the first things we want to do are add our zipper tabs. I already have these little bits of quilt cotton cut, so I'm going to use that. So make sure you check the pattern for the mini NCW for the length of the zipper tape. It is obviously different. So I have my zipper tape cut. I'm going to add my zipper pull. He's so tiny. All right, I got my itty bitty zipper pull on there and I put it in the middle. And now I'm going to grab my little tabs. I'm going to take one tab. My tabs are a little bit longer than they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be little squares. I make them a little bit longer and then I trim them down. So I have my tab. I'm going to lay it right side down on one edge of the zipper tape. And I'll add a clip to hold it there. Then I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to grab another tab and lay that right side to the back of the zipper tape. I'm pretty much just making a little sandwich. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just get it lined up as best you can and clip it together. So I'm looking at the wrong side of my quilt cotton and it's just hugging around my zipper tape. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side of my zipper tape. Okay, now I'm going to go to the sewing machine and I'm just going to sew along both of these little short edges at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I will backstitch at the beginning and the end. Just make sure you're catching the top zipper tab, the zipper tape, and the bottom zipper tab each time. So now take your zipper tabs and just flip them right side out. You might want to pull them as far as you can, line up the raw edges over here, maybe add a clip. If you want to iron this to hold it better, you can. I'm not going to iron it. I'm just going to pull it with my fingers. Here we go. And now we're going to go top stitch right along this edge on the zipper tabs at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, once your zipper tabs are all applied, we are back to the regular NCW pattern. You're going to grab one of your smaller pocket lining pieces and lay it right side up. Grab your zipper. I like the zipper to close when it's going towards the left, so I'm just going to have it going like that. And lay your zipper on top of it and centered. So you might want to mark midpoints here. Let's do that just to start off. So I'm going to mark the midpoint on the top edge of this smaller cut for the zipper pocket lining. Boop. And then I'm also going to mark the midpoint on my zipper tape. So I'm just going to fold it together. And for the zipper tape, I'll use a pen. I'm going just right on the edge. Nothing that can be seen in the end. So don't make a big mark going all the way across the zipper tape. Just like a little dot right on the edge. It doesn't take much. So now taking my small zipper pocket lining, I'm going to lay that right side up, and then I'm going to take my zipper tape, and with the zipper closing towards the left, lay this right side up and match up those midpoints and clip together. And just clip along this entire edge. And because I'm clumsy, I always like to base down my zippers before I attach the other piece. So I'm just going to base this down at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now grab one of your larger cuts, which is your outer pocket, and lay that right side down. And I am just going to match it up with the edges of the other lining pocket. So my zipper tabs overextend farther than the material, so I'm not matching it up with the edge of the zipper tabs. Just the edge of the other pocket that I already stitched in place. So I'm going to do the edges first. Kind of flatten it out, make sure everything's lined up. Looks good. And then I'll clip along this top edge. And now let's sew along this top edge at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Once you have those stitched together, you're going to press the two panels wrong sides together. Use an iron if it's more helpful. Again, with this water resistant canvas, it's very easy to just press it with my fingers and get a nice straight line. That looks great. All right, now we're gonna top stitch along this edge at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So now we're just gonna repeat that on the other side of the zipper tape. So take your other pocket lining piece, lay it right side up. Take your zipper tape and lay your zipper tape right side up. This time we're working on the edge that doesn't have anything sewn together. You can mark a midpoint on this other edge if you'd like. Let's go ahead and do that. You could also just line it up with the sides that you've already stitched in place, but it is easier if you mark a midpoint. So now just lay this right side up on top of the right side of the zipper pocket lining and clip together. Make sure it's lined up on the sides with the panels you've already sewn on. And now I'm just gonna go baste this real quick at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So keeping your zipper right side up, take your zipper pocket, your bigger piece that's left over, and lay it right side down and just match it up. So once again, it's lining up with the edges of the panel you've just sewed on. It's always easiest to clip the corners first and then clip along the entire top edge. And now let's sew along this top clipped edge at 1/4 inch seam allowance. All right, I forgot to turn the camera on for that. I do apologize. But now we're going to flip those two panels we just sewed wrong sides together. And I like to zip the zipper up all the way. You can press this if you'd like, but even if you're using a cotton woven material, with how small this is, you probably don't need to. And now we're going to just top stitch right along this edge at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Wow, I'm really sorry. I didn't turn on the camera again. I promise you none of that I did, those last two steps that I didn't film, they are not challenging or different in any way than the side that we already stitched on. So I know it's important to see it all just in case it's a little bit trickier, a little bit more difficult, but it's the exact same as what we already did. So you should be okay. So now as you can see, my zipper tabs overextend. So I'm just gonna trim these down. So this is one nice long rectangle now. You know what, I'm looking at this pattern piece and now I realize why my credit card slots don't work the way I want them to. If you're doing the small one, make sure you take note of this. This right here has a credit card slot placement. When we sew the credit card slots onto the lining, and I'll try to make sure I remind you when we get there. When we sew them on, we sew a little rectangle down here that is 1 inch wide. If you're doing the vertical credit card slots for this one, this needs to be 1/2 of an inch wide, not an inch, because what happens is with an inch, it does actually sew into the bottom part of that bottom credit card pocket, so it can't go as deep as it needs to. You see what I'm saying? All right, it was my mistake, not the pattern's fault. My fault, as expected. I never assumed it was the pattern's fault. Okay, now open your zipper. I like to open it most of the way. If I have a big zipper pull, I don't open it all the way just in case. And now we're going to take your two longer zipper panels and lay them right sides together. Just clip along the edges. Then also take your two shorter pieces and flip those right sides together. And then just clip along the sides. When you do this, if you take your zipper tabs, you can fold them towards the lining side. So push the tab towards the shorter section and then clip those together. So on the other side as well, push it towards the shorter section and then clip together. And now we're just going to clip along the bottom of the bigger section along all the sides, and we're going to leave the top right here, which is the shorter bit. We're going to leave that top open. Okay, starting at the top of the shorter bit where the opening is, you're going to backstitch and go down the long sides, the short edge of the bigger bit, the other long side, all of it at 1/4 inch seam allowance. Make sure you backstitch at the beginning and the end and leave this bit at the top open. So once you have it all sewn together, let's clip these corners. So these are the corners on the longer edge. I clip them, and then I also clip just little tiny slits just around them. It helps the corners poke out a little bit more. And if you watched my previous wallet tutorial going over the larger size of this, we actually added a zipper on both sides, which is pretty neat. But for this one, we're just doing one zipper. So let's pull the material right side out through that hole. So you push the whole thing right side out. Can't believe I forgot to mention this in the beginning. This is my favorite turning tool. So you're going to grab this and carefully poke out those corners. I'm just telling you, you can still poke a hole with this, so you might want to take the more blunt edge and push that in there first. I just find it easier to use this than my fingers. And ideally, you're gonna get these corners nice and sharp because this is the top edge of a pocket. So you want it to get it looking its best. But carefully do this. If you poke too hard, this little metal thing will come right out the seam, or even poke a hole in your material, depending on how hard you push. So be very gentle. I just kind of like gently scrape it along the side and push up. Super gentle. There we go. Okay, once you get that pushed out, take your lining and just push it inside. You're actually not going to close that hole right now. We'll close it later in the pattern. And what you want to do, take your finger, put it inside between the material, and poke out these zipper tabs. So just gently get in there and push out the zipper tabs. So when I do zipper tabs on pockets, I usually prefer to not have them sewn in the seam on the side because it does get, like this gets very, very bulky. But in the previous tutorial, we didn't sew them into the sides, but this is such a small zipper that in order to accommodate that, we would have had to shorten the zipper even more. And I didn't want to do that. So I'm just trying to get in here and flatten out that lining piece as best as I can. So once you have it as flattened out as possible, you can grab an iron and just really try to smooth out all the wrinkles. Okay, this is looking great. So now I'm just going to top stitch along this folded edge right here at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm going to back stitch at the beginning and the end of this. Okay, so we have the credit card slot and the zip pocket all done. Now we just need to build the exterior. So let's put these to the side. And I know I'm going a little backwards. So let's work on this flap. I'm going to take my flap and lay it right sides together. I'm attaching my magnetic snap at the end, so you will see the rivet on the front side of the flap. I'm okay with that. If you want to attach your magnetic snap, maybe you have prongs or something, you want to attach that first. You're going to attach it to the lining side of the flap and make sure it is centered, okay? With regards to how high to put it, I would follow the pattern. The hardest thing about something like that is that it depends on how thick your material is. If your vinyl is really thick, if your interfacing is really thick, where this folds the best in the end is going to be different. You know, there's really not like a one location that's great no matter what, which is why I do the magnetic snap at the end. If you're doing a turn lock, the flap is where you're going to install the hole, so you can wait until the end to install that. So something to think about. So I'm going to take my 2 pieces of flat material and lay them right sides together, and then clip them together along the sides and the little curvy-wurvy bottom. So now I'm going to go sew along the sides and the bottom at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm pretty much just going to keep my needle right next to the Decoville heavy. I don't want to sew on top of the Decoville heavy because that Decoville heavy does not fold. So when you turn it out, it's going to be a mess. So I'm just keeping it like, it's just going to just kiss the side of it all the way around, backstitch at the beginning and the end, and leave the top straight bit open. Once you have that sewn together, grab some scissors and just clip about halfway into the seam allowance around any curvy bits. It's going to help the fabric stretch out and give you a nice smooth finish. So I'm just going like every 3/8 of an inch or so. I don't measure it. I'm just trimming like that. There we go. So now let's flip this right side out. I'm going to grab my handy dandy turning tool and just press gently along the seam. Get it flattened out as best you can. I know it can be tricky, especially if you got a little, if you maybe got on top of your Decoville heavy a little bit. I think I did. I think I ended up stitching a little bit on top of my Decoville heavy, which is not ideal because the fabric still needs room to fold. I'm going to finger press it as best I can, but then I'm going to get the help of the iron. And with the Decoville heavy, just like with most interfacing, when it's hot, it's pretty malleable. So what I'm trying to do is while it's hot and kind of gummy, I'm just smoothing it out to the shape I want it to be. And as it cools, it'll stay like that. So if you really want to, you can also just put something heavy like a ruler or something on top of it, nice and flat, let that cool. Okay, so now with the exterior right side out, I'm going to top stitch around the edges and also around the opening at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Look at that adorable little flap. I love it. All right, set this to the side. So before we attach everything together, we need to prepare our exterior. So it can be a little hard to figure out how this wallet works. Let me grab the flap, so I'll show you. in the end, the bottom folds up like this. Yeah, so the flap will come down like this. This is kind of how it looks in the end. I mean, a little bit different, but this is how it works. So the top and the bottom of your unit are the long edges, not the short edges. So I'm going to decide which is the top. I'm going to have this be the top. So this is going to be the back of the flap. So when I look at the back of my wallet, the flap is here. It goes like this. And that's where I like to put my bag tag. I'm just going to go about an inch down. I'll just tape it down. So I just have a piece of double-sided tape here. I'm going to use a small ruler to help keep it centered. So I'm just going to measure 1 inch down. There we go. And then I'll just tape my tag down. There we go. So now I'm going to go top stitch around all 4 edges of my tag at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so there's that. And now I also want to install the female end of my magnetic snap. So when you look at your magnetic snaps, you have a male end and a female end. And the female end is usually a little bit bigger, a little bit thicker than the male end. So I like to put the male end on the flap because I have it's less bulky, and then I put the female end on the body. So remember, when the wallet is finished, this bit here folds up like that. So this is the bottom, and this is where the flap is going to attach. So we're going to install the magnetic snap on this bit right here, on the bottom bit. I know I'm saying bit a lot, I'm sorry. So you can probably not see it in the video, but right here I have a little mark. So it's 2.5 inches down from the bottom edge of my exterior panel, and it's centered. That's the key here. It needs to be centered. That's where I'm going to install the female end of my magnetic snap. So before I install this, I like to grab a scrap piece of Decovil Heavy. Since this vinyl is pretty lightweight, over time this magnetic snap can pull at it and eventually rip it. So what I want to do is install it with a piece of Decovil Heavy to help that. So I'm going to grab my hole punch. This is just another rivet press that has a hole punch die on it. You can use any kind of hole punch really. And I'm going to punch out the hole where I marked on my exterior material. And then I'm also going to punch a hole out of the center of my Decovil Heavy. And then I'm going to take the female end and just push it through the hole that I've punched out. And the snap side should be on the exterior side of the material. And then on the back, I'll insert my Decovil Heavy and then attach the rivet that goes there. And there we go. Now I'm going to grab my rivet press and I'm going to install the die that looks like the male end that goes on the bottom. And then I'm going to take the top die, which looks like a rivet die, and install that. I'm just going to lay this magnetic snap side down, rivet side up, and press it down. There we go. Now we have that ready to go, so let's put the whole thing together. So take your exterior right side up, and this is going to be the top edge right here that's going to go against your flap. And then take your flap and lay it exterior side down, lining side up, and using the midpoint mark on this top edge and the midpoint mark on the straight edge of your flap, match this up and clip together. I'm going to go baste this together at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So once you have that basted on, set it to the side. And now, this is a trick I learned from a lot of other YouTubers, and I think it's just great. Let's find the 2 intersecting lines on our lining. So I'm just folding my lining together. And I'm just going to kind of press a little bit right here. Since it has that Sophie's Plus on it, it'll leave a nice little line, just like that. I don't know if you can see, but it leaves a nice little line. And now I'm going to fold it up long sides together, matching up those midpoint marks. And again, making a little fold, just like that. All right, perfect. So what I have now is an intersection. I'm not going to mark it, but I have an intersection here, like a little plus sign. And what I want to do is make a 4-inch long line that goes horizontally parallel with the long edges. So like this, right? And so I'm going to use my ruler and I'm going to match up where the intersection is with the 2-inch mark on my ruler. And then using that, I'm just going to measure and mark a 4-inch line like that. So now I have a 4-inch line marked and it's in the middle running horizontally. And then I'm going to grab my seam ripper and I'm going to rip along that line. You can rip along the whole bit or you can just rip a little bit and then cut the rest of it. There we go. And this is actually how we turn it out. And we don't sew it closed because it gets it gets covered with other things and sewn around later. So it actually works out really, really well. So just go with it. If you're weary about this idea, just go with it. So now we're gonna take our exterior, lay it right side up. It has the flap attached. Take our lining, lay it right side down, and we're going to just line up everything. So I like to line up the midpoint marks first, and then I'll line up all the other edges, just clipping it together. Alrighty, now we're gonna sew around the entire oval at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm just gonna do 1 row of stitching, but if you're using very thick vinyl, you might wanna do 2 rows of stitching just to make sure that the thread doesn't get pulled on too much. Okay, I'm going to just cut little slits about halfway through the seam allowance on the curved bits, just to help this all spread out a little bit. And now we're going to turn it all out through that hole in the lining. So just be careful, you don't want to rip that hole, make it too big. But the combination of the waterproof canvas and the Sofuse Plus should help prevent that. All right, once you have it turned out, let's push out those seams all the way around. There we go. All right, so you can see on the lining side, it's very wrinkly. We are going to go ahead and iron that. And then on the exterior, it actually looks really nice. So I'm just gonna flatten it out as best I can, and then I'm going to press it with my iron just to get it nice and crisp and looking good. I'm not touching the vinyl with my iron. I'm only doing the waterproof canvas. And again, this is on the right side of it. So, all right, so let's just take a quick look. In the end, this gets folded in like this, and then this gets up, then this goes down. Oh yeah, I will never ever get bored making these. These are so cute. And then on the back, there's our little tag. So with this opening right here, if you're worried about it fraying, if you're worried about just leaving it like that, you can apply fray check to it, or you can actually get some very sticky double-sided tape, because we're going to be putting something over this anyways, so this could help keep that closed and help hold something in place before we sew it. So I just cut off like a little 3-inch piece of tape, and I'm just going to completely cover the center of that. You can have it cover all of it if you need to. There we go. Okay, before we move on, we do need to top stitch around the edges of this. So we're going to top stitch all the way around the oval at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now that that's top stitched, flip it over so you're looking at the lining side. And what you're going to do is you're going to just line up your card slots so that it's centered on the flap. It needs to be centered on the flap and then centered in between. It's very easy to eyeball this. So what I'm going to do is remove the paper from that tape. All right, now that it's centered, what I want to do is take one of the flaps and hug it around the card slot, and it needs to be actually hugging around the card slot material, not just folded here. It needs to be wrapped around it. I'm gonna grab some clips and clip this in place. Do the same thing on the other side. Really wrap it in nice and tight. There we go. So it should just extend straight from the flap. So we're going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance and a top stitch to stitch this down. I will be back stitching at the beginning and the end of each of these. Okay, here we go. Almost done. Now grab your zipper pocket, and when the zipper's closed, I like the zipper pulled to be on the left. And we're going to center it over this. Now, before we do that, let's mark some lines on the zipper pocket, okay? First, let's mark a midpoint line. So what I did was just fold this in half and then mark that midpoint with a chalk marker. And now, when I line this up, I'm gonna line up that midpoint with the seam connecting my 2 card slot pockets. Just snug it in there. If you want to use some double-sided tape here, go ahead and do that. Actually, I think I will. Just a small piece will do, but it is helpful to keep everything together. And once you have that in there, what you want to do is take your ruler, and if you're doing the horizontal pockets, you're going to measure 1/2 inch on each side of that midpoint mark and draw a line. If you're doing the vertical pockets, which I did wrong, if you're doing the vertical pockets, you're actually going to measure 1/4 inch on each side of that line. So I'm just taking my 1-inch ruler and centering it over that line and just marking on either side of it. Okay, and now when we go to the sewing machine, what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew along the outer line. So not the middle line. The middle line is of no concern anymore. I'm sewing along the outer lines, and then I'm going to stitch at about 1/8 inch in from the short edges over here, go along the outer line again, and then stitch 1/8 inch in on this side as well. You're creating a nice little box that gives the wallet a good shape, but it also is going to close up a lot of things and attach it all together. If you're doing the vertical pockets, this should be a 1/2 inch tall box, not a 1-inch tall box. So this one step is the whole reason why I used a different thread on my bobbin than normal, because you do see the thread here on the exterior and it looks pretty nice. That turquoise color, even though it's a bright color, it actually blends very well with most colors. So I'm just gonna trim the long bits. If I have any obnoxious little tails, I pull the material back and very gently burn down the tail without burning the material. All right, there we go. Now we just have to close up the sides. And to close up the sides, I use rivets because sewing it can be very difficult. So grab your fabric marker of choice and a small ruler. And from the bottom left edge over here, we're going to take our ruler and we're going to measure from that corner of the seam up to 3.5 inches. So pretty much you just rotate your ruler around until the edge of your panel intersects with the 3.5 inch mark. And you still have the corner of your ruler down here. I actually like to grab a pin for that point because we don't really need a big mark there. But it's hard to see with the chalk marker. So I'm just gonna grab a pin and put it right there. There we go. And then I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. So from the seam corner to 3.5 inches along the edge. There we go. Grab a pin and just pin that spot. So now I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to line it up with that marked pin spot, and then I'm also going to line it up with the corner of my little box that I made down here, just like that, and then I'm going to use my chalk marker to mark a line. Make sure you can see it. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, from the corner of my box up to that pin. Okay, take the pins out. And I'm just going to do one side at a time because the markings can go away after a bit. So what you want to do is bring up the flap, and then with that marked line is going to line up with the edge. For me, it's the zipper panel flap. It's going to line up with it, and then I'm just going to hug it around my zipper panel. Now, this is tricky. It is tricky, and for some reason, my zipper panels don't come up as high in the smaller version as they did in the larger version. So I'm going to attach a clip lower down and also a clip up top. Try to hold it all together. There we go. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, pulling up the panel and wrapping the side of the wallet around it. So yeah, I don't know. In the previous pattern, the top edges of these panels usually come up with the top edge of the exterior, but in this case they are significantly low. So stitching this might actually be better, because when we do the rivets, the rivet has to come down so low that this is going to be, I don't think it's going to look very good. So I think we're going to have to stitch this. All right, so we'll try stitching it. So I'm going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'm going to stitch down this edge over here. I'm going to go as far down as I can. I tell you what, going over that zipper tab is not going to be fun. That could break a needle, but I'm going to do my best. I'm going to try to stitch down both these edges, and you can't go all the way down to the bottom. You just go as far as you can, about 2 inches or so. All right, so I stitched that down, and it's okay. It's okay. I think it's better than the rivets just because this doesn't go as high as we really want it to. And I wonder why. I mean, because can you see? This is very low. This is about over 1/2 inch below the top edge of this, which I just don't really get why. So I think we might need to add some height to this panel for the zipper pocket. I don't know. But let's go ahead and finish up the other side doing the same thing. So once again, I'm going to measure 3.5 inches from this corner. And I'm going to use a pin to mark that placement. Do the same thing on the other side. And then using my ruler, I'm just going to mark a line going from that pin to its closest corner on the bottom here that we stitched out previously. And I'm just using a chalk marker here to mark that line. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side with the other corner. Okay, then I can remove the pins and then wrap the side panel around the zipper. I like to clip it on the top and also clip it on the side. Do the same thing with this little flap over here. All right, once again, I'm going to sew along these edges at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, backstitch really well at the beginning and the end, and just go as far as you can. It might just be 2 inches, but that's fine. All right, so I have these stitched down. Looks decent. I was able to get this side higher than the left, and I'm very tempted right now to unpick this left side and try to get it to even out. What do you guys think? Should I... You see, I don't know if you can see. It's a little crooked, which bothers me. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna unstitch it. This is what I do. I mean, this is either gonna make it worse or better. But this side right here, I don't know if you can see a good angle, but you see how it comes down on the right from the top edge about 1/4 inch, and on the left it's over 1/2 inch, and that angle is gonna bug me. So I'm gonna try to pull it back up so it lines up with the right side. So I'm just going to gently unpick the top stitching here. And at least this is the good thing about stitching this in place, is that if you're like, hey, I really don't like how this looks, you can carefully unpick it. Even if you're using vinyl, you can unpick it and redo it. If I did this with a rivet, I'm pretty much stuck with what I got, because even if I could take the rivet out, that giant hole left by the rivet would not be very useful. So I'm just gently seam ripping this out. And I know I have these little marks on my vinyl, but I should be able to match it back up, so I just kind of go over those little stitch marks, hopefully. We'll see. So I am going to pull this up as far as I can. There we go. That seems better, right? Yeah. So now I'm just going to refold around it and clip together. All right, I'm going to go back and redo this one at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm going to show you this because it's incredibly frustrating. Somehow it got untucked. Oh, so I'm going to seam rip it again. See, I should have just left it. This is what happens. All right, I'm going to seam rip it again and try again. All right, that looks better. 3rd time's the charm. If you've ever wondered why I use rivets so much, that's why, because it's just a lot easier for me. So the only thing I have left to do is to add my little snap. It is looking so cute, isn't it? So now, snap placement. Let's take a little looky-loo. Ideally, we want it centered on this bottom loop here. There we go. The thing with snap placement is that if it's 1/8 inch off, you will notice, everybody else probably will not, but you probably will. So what I can do is actually grab a pin and just kind of pin it through my material until I get to the bottom. So that looks like that will be good. So that's my spot. So I'm gonna grab a marker too. So once I push that pin through and I lift it out, I have a little hole. You can grab my marking tool, mark there. And before you make this hole, the one thing you want to make sure of is that this magnetic snap isn't going to overhang the edge. So I have my little hole here marked, and I'm going to center my magnetic snap over it, and I'm just making sure that the edge of this is within the fabric. It's not hanging off the edge like that, okay? And we're good. So I'm going to punch out this hole that I marked. Now, the magnetic snap, the male side, goes on the bottom, and then the rivet cap goes on the top. Let's just try it real quick. Oh yeah, perfect. All right, let's set it. So all I have to do is switch out the bottom dies. So I have a bottom die that looks like the female end, and I'm just gonna put that in there. Let's unsnap this, flip it over, and press it in place nice and tight. Look at this happy little wallet. Oh man, you're a cute one. You are cute. Okay, you guys, it doesn't matter how many times I make these little wallets. Every single time they're done, I'm like, holy guacamole. That is an adorable wallet. The NCW, it's just the perfect shape. I love it so much. And you know what? Okay, so remember I said in the beginning, we're gonna see, I didn't use that Decoville heavy piece to go along the entire body like I did with my first one here. And actually, I think it's fine. I really do. I think using that SewFuse Plus or Craft Fuse is a perfect alternative. Just apply that to the body piece of the wallet and it's perfect. And then having the Decoville heavy over here in the flap is perfect again. I think the interfacing combination we did, absolutely the best. I am still struggling with these sides. I did sew these sides today instead of riveting it. I actually think it looks really good. As long as you use thread, that's the same color as your material. If you're a really wonky top stitcher like I am, it's gonna turn out really, really well. So I love that. I do wish I would have followed the pattern better on this first one so that I would have done the vertical card slots correctly. So make sure, I hope you caught that. Make sure you do pay attention to that. You're going to change the width of this bottom rectangle right here if you're doing the vertical card slots. I mean, it will still work. My pockets will still work fine. It's just you don't see them quite as neatly as you would if you follow the instructions and sewed the right size on the bottom if you're doing the vertical card slots. But the horizontal card slots are still a favorite over here. I absolutely love them. So this, once again, to no one's surprise, came together quite beautifully. I just cannot get enough of this pattern. I know you guys feel the same way. I see so many NCWs all the time. It's one of those patterns where, like, if you have some experience making bags and you're kind of in a rut and you're like, I just want to make something that I know is going to turn out amazing and not take forever to make, the NCW, that's your make. That's what you do. So I hope you love making these as much as I do. If you do make the mini and you follow the tutorial, let me know. Tag me on social media. I'm at OklaRoots over on Instagram and Facebook. I always love seeing what you guys are making. Of course, because of the size of this is a great little wallet for summer travel, for teens, you know, especially if you're traveling with teens and this is the first time they've really traveled, you know, so you want them to have something, some cash, maybe they have an ID, maybe they have a credit card, things like that, but they don't have all the things like, you know, mom does, right? This is a great option for them. This is a great beginner wallet and also just a great wallet for those of us who don't carry a lot of cards, which is not me. But I do know that not all of you carry all of the library cards from all the different libraries you visited across the country. So this is a good one for those of you who don't have a lot of stuff in your wallet. I just love it. Thank you so much for sewing with me today. I hope you're having a great day. Have a fantastic rest of your week. Get out there and make something. Bye guys.